It happened on a night that I was the designated driver among my group of friends after a party. My friends were Micheal, Eddie, and Daniella. We live in the country, so anytime we wanted to go to the bars or parties, we'd have to travel long distances. That's why it's such a big deal for one of us to be sober enough to drive. We were driving down the 513, which is an unlit highway littered with the occasional house or two, but mostly forest. This story takes place on the way back from town. Daniella started to cry that she had to piss really bad. I told her she'd have to wait a while longer, but not gonna lie, I started to get the urge as well. That mixed with the fact that Daniella was now screaming in her drunken fit, I figured why not pull over to the side of the road and just piss somewhere in the woods. Daniella got out first and disappeared into the crops on one side. I went to the opposite side of the road and slightly into the woods just because I'm the type of person who can't have people watching me piss. I finished first and got back in the car. Eddie and Micheal were singing to the roaring rap music playing on the radio, while I pretty much just sat there in silence, growing impatient. My two drunk friends didn't seem to find anything strange about the fact that Daniella had now been gone for 5 minutes, so I got back out to call her name. Micheal has a much stronger voice than I, so when he screamed for her, it would be impossible for her not to hear. But still, she didn't call back. I didn't want to go in those crops, but I kind of felt like I had to since she's my friend, and I was the most aware at that moment. I forced Micheal to come with since I was afraid to go in alone. Eddie stayed in the car, he was just too far gone at this point. With the flashlight from my glove box, Micheal and I pushed our way through the thick, overgrown crops, walking in the only direction we could think to go, straight away from the car. Micheal was calling Danielle's name while laughing his ass off. I could understand why he was finding it funny in his condition, but I just wanted to make sure she was alright and get home. Over the sounds of her own footsteps brushing crops aside and Michael's laughter, I heard something else in the near vicinity. I put my arm out to Michael's chest to halt him. Now all that could be heard was the night breeze blowing through the crops. "What is it?" Micheal whispered, to which I responded, "Shh." "That." Micheal called out Daniella's name again. I joined in, figuring it was just her trying to sneak up on us and scare us. And again, the footsteps stopped. So we walked a little deeper into the crops. That's when we came to a narrow clearing stretch. I looked to my left, as far down as the light would let me see, and then to the right. I could hear 3 footsteps, and then a couple crops pushed outward into the opening as somebody stepped into view. At first my light was only revealing their legs, so by default under the circumstances I assumed it was Micheal. However, the light revealed it to be not Micheal, but instead some random man who I'd never seen before. I ran for it back in the only direction I remembered coming from. I guess I ran so fast that it only took me about 10 seconds to make it back to the car. Eddie was passed out in the car at this point, so I didn't bother trying to get help from him. I was honking the horn to get Michael's and hopefully Daniella's attention. The sight of that man just disturbed me. I didn't know if he owned this land or not. I continued to land the horn until finally, Micheal came out of the crops dragging Daniella, who seemed to be out cold. I got out to help him lift her back inside of the car and plop her on the seat. Micheal pointed out the gash on her forehead, as if she had been struck with a heavy, sharp object. Micheal seemed to be sobering up pretty quickly due to the situation. He advised I drive to the nearest hospital, which was 10 minutes away. The drive there was not fun. It was full of panic and yelling. We brought Daniella in to have her wound treated as soon as possible. It was only then that Micheal explained to the nurses, not me, that he saw some guy dragging her collapsed, unconscious body before fleeing deeper into the crops after noticing him. He never mentioned that in the car, but it made perfect sense now. That man in the crops with us that night did this.